Hi PBC, this is the Smith family. We go to the 8:45am service normally. We'd like to share with you a few of the things that we've been doing lately while we've all been in lockdown.
So last week we were learning about King Jehoshaphat and we wrote down this prayer. Dear God, God, you are loving, kind and in control. We remember when you helped the people from Judah through King Jehoshaphat. Please help us be patient until we go back to school and see our friends. We cannot do it without you. Thank you, God, for always being with us. Jesus, strong and kind, we've been doing this verse because we have been being kind and helping others when they feel a bit lonely. For the Lord is good and faithful. He will keep us day and night. We can always run to Jesus. Jesus, strong and kind.
We've also been reading this book called How Great Is Our God, and it's pretty much a book saying how great our God is and all the amazing and good things that He's done to help us humans.
We've also been writing cards to people and sending them to try and encourage people and dropping off little packages to people who are within our 5K, and also organising some surprise deliveries for people that are doing it tough right now, and also for some of our family who we really miss and really hope to see very soon. We also hope that we can see you guys soon too, our church family, but until then, know that we're praying and thinking of you all. Bye!
Bye!
Hello Parramatta Baptist Church, it's Morel, and I'm glad to have the opportunity today to welcome you to this service. Each week, PBC Online has been the reminder for my family that we are anchored to a greater hope than what we can find in ourselves or within our household. We've been encouraged every week to continue to serve others in love, to refocus our prayers when we've heard of the faith of those who've gone before us, and to reorient ourselves in a posture of praise and worship to a God who is always good, always kind, and always in control. I thank you for joining us today. Your faith builds up my faith. Together, we are the church. So let's praise His name now.
Hey church family, my name's Ben. It's great to be with you, and I am really looking forward to when I can be with you in person, or we can gather together in an auditorium. I can't wait till we can sing worship songs together and get louder together and hear each other's voices. It's going to be so good. Now, right now I'm sitting in my office and I'm going to be joined by a few people who are recording from their homes as well. And we're going to worship God right now. But as I've been sitting here with my guitar, I've just been reflecting that whilst I look forward to meeting in person and worshiping in person and hearing other voices sing along, right now I refuse to wait till then to worship. Like, I refuse to as I sing these songs go, oh, wouldn't it be great if this was all in person? Or wouldn't it be great if we had that instrument that we can have in person but we don't have online? Instead of thinking about what could be or anticipating the future that will be good, I'm convinced that right now I'm going to worship here and now, because God is worthy of worship, not just in the future, but He's worthy of worship right now. So I invite you to sing praises, not to God who will be, but to God who is, here and now. Let's be really aware of the goodness and the presence and the provision and the kindness and the protection of our God in this moment, because He's worthy of praise right now. Let's sing together. Let's sing.
song we could ever sing. Worthy of all the praise we could ever bring. You're worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. You're worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are, and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Worthy of every song we could ever sing. Worthy of all the praise we could ever bring. You're worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. You're worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are, and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are, and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. And I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation, and I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside Great are you, Lord. You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. And great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. Great are you, Lord. You give life, you give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. And great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. Sing, all the earth will shout your praise. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you.
Thank you, worship team. And now in the life of our church. This week, Lara and Dave Johnston have welcomed a new baby into their family. Eleanor Johnston, we look forward to meeting you, and our prayers are with you, Thomas, as you learn to share your parents and your toys. The Hub Development Task Force are now preparing the application for the building project. As we get into the nitty-gritty details and liaising with parties outside of church, we are seeking a team of prayers to cover the project in prayer. They will be seeking God's counsel and His provision over the process. If you are interested in supporting the project in this way, then please contact Kathy. You will receive development updates to direct your prayers. And now here is Kathy with the latest developments in returning to church.
Hey church family, we're so looking forward to seeing one another again soon. As our New South Wales government have begun to work out the roadmap out, we as a pastoral team have also begun trying to discern our own roadmap when it comes to regathering for our Sunday services and also for other ministries. As part of that, we would love to hear your thoughts and plans, and so that we're able to make informed decisions, being able to serve both those who are able to gather and also those who may not be able to gather. To that end, we have sent out an anonymous survey that you should have already received, and we would love every person over 18 to fill out this survey. It should only take you a few minutes. And just as a side note, if you're a parent, please, if only one of you could list your children, that would be really helpful so that we don't double count them, because the survey really is anonymous. Thank you so much. And if you didn't receive the email, please let us know, and also check your junk and other folder as well. Just finally, can I say again, as we endeavour to make decisions for the welfare of our whole church family, please, please, please take those few minutes to fill out this survey as soon as possible. Bless you heaps, and see you soon.
Well, thanks, Kathy, and g'day, everyone. It's so good to have you with us at Church Online today. And happy school holidays for all our students and our teachers out there. Trust you're having a really refreshing and a rejuvenating time. And so I want to actually start our time together with a little bit of a hypothetical, bit of an illustration. I want you to imagine we're back in the pre-COVID days, the glory days, and it's school holidays. And so adults, I want you to imagine that you're a kid again. Maybe even a teenage boy would be appropriate for this one. And you've been able to gather together some of your mates at home, and your mum and dad, bless them, have hooked you guys up with a pizza lunch. And so you crowd around the lunchtime table and the pizza's placed on it, and someone opens that lid and, oh yeah, you see the sights, you smell the smells, and you know you are hungry for a piece of that pizza. But there's a problem, right? The problem is that there is a finite amount of pizza, and you're not the only one who wants their portion. And to make matters worse, the 15-year-old kid at Domino's, well, I mean, they haven't paid that much attention, have they, to the even distribution of toppings. And when it's come time to cut that pizza, well, they haven't paid that much attention to ensuring that the portions are equal either. And so looking at it, you can see some pieces are better than others. They're bigger, they're cheesier, they're more covered with the toppings that you love. And of course, this is just multiplied and compounded if there's many types of pizza, because you know that some whole pizzas are better than others. That vegetarian pizza that parents always think they need to order to cater. And so if you're honest with yourself, thinking about yourself in a situation like that, or maybe remembering when you were in a situation like that, you know that there is an awareness at some level that you're actually in competition with the people around you when it comes to getting your hand on your portion, the portion that will most satisfy and most fulfill you. And if you're deeply, confrontingly honest with yourselves, there is a little bit of truth, isn't there, that your enjoyment of your portion is a little bit dependent on the portions of others. You're going to compare, aren't you? You know, when a pizza gets sliced really wrongly and there's a really big piece, it usually means there's a really small piece. And if that ends up being your portion, I mean, it's still pizza. It still tastes good. But it's not that piece, is it? And I share that to lead into today with the important spiritual principle that you should always order more pizza than you think you need. Okay, not quite. That's just conventional wisdom, right? No, the point is that many of us have a hard time growing out of that. And we can actually carry that mindset through life. I mean, we want to have joy. We want to be satisfied. We want to be content with what we have, our portion. And yet some of us can't shake this scarcity mindset. To be driven by constant comparison and fear, the fear of missing out. And if that's left unchecked and grows, we can end up becoming bitter, jealous, even resentful towards others and towards God. Well, today's psalm, King David, the writer of it, will remind us that there is another way, a better way, a more godly way to live. A way that can and does lead us into the fullness of life, where we can experience deepest satisfaction and fulfillment, contentment, joy, and gratitude. How? When we have God Himself as our portion. So if you have your Bibles, encourage you to open them up to Psalm 16. That's where we're going to be camping out today, and Lionel is going to read that for us now. Thanks, Lionel.
We're reading today from Psalm 16. Keep me safe, my God, for in you I take refuge. I say to the Lord, you are my Lord. Apart from you, I have no good thing. I say of the holy people who are in the land, they are the noble ones in whom is all my delight. Those who run after other gods will suffer more and more. I will not pour out libations of blood to such gods, or take up their names upon my lips. Lord, you alone are my portion and my cup. You make my lot secure. The boundary lines have fallen in pleasant places. Surely I have a delightful inheritance. I will praise the Lord who counsels me. Even at night my heart instructs me. I keep my eyes always on the Lord. With him at my right hand, I will not be shaken. Therefore my heart is glad and my tongue rejoices. My body also will rest secure, because you will not abandon me to the realm of the dead, nor will you let your faithful one see decay. You made known to me the path of life. You will fill me with joy in your presence, with eternal pleasures at your right hand.
Lord, you alone are my portion and my cup. Apart from you, I have no good thing. What beautiful and powerful words and ways to live. You know, for some of us, maybe it's just time. Time to leave behind the competing and the comparing, the fear of missing out, and to genuinely and deeply trust God. To embrace what is your inheritance as a child of God, and that is to walk in the fullness of life, experiencing joy in every season, because the Lord is your portion. Now, if you want to join David in having this blessed state of being, then today I'm going to invite you to make the same 3 choices that I see King David make here in this psalm. But before we get to those 3 choices, a little bit of context is always important, and I think this one is super important, which is the opening verse. You see, I think when we hear people say stuff like David says here, you know, I'm blessed, I'm content, I'm filled with joy, isn't God so good to me? And we're struggling ourselves to feel that way, then I think it's natural for us to kind of explain the difference in our contentment away based on the difference in our circumstances. Does that make sense? So we hear someone say that they're blessed and they're content and the Lord is their portion. We're not feeling that way. So we look over the fence to where we think the grass looks greener. And we say, well, of course you'd say that. If I had your good looks, if I had your youth, or if I had your experience, if I had your popularity, if I had your wealth, if I had your family, if I was in the season of life that you are in right now, then of course I'd be happy too and content and praising God. But I love that verse 1 just does not let us play that card at all. Verse 1 sets the scene that David is not writing all this lovely stuff when things are easy and life is going according to plan. Quite the opposite. The psalm opens with a cry for help. Keep me safe, God. David is distressed. He feels threatened. I mean, you read between the lines of the psalm and his actual physical life, he feels is at risk of prematurely being ended. And yet, despite this, in the midst of this, he looks to God to be his portion. And so I'd love you at home to consider, just for a moment, where are you at with life's circumstances right now? Just name those things, bring them to mind. What are those circumstances? How do you feel about those circumstances? How are you seeing your life and experiencing your life right now? And how do you feel towards God in the midst of it? And I ask those questions because we don't want to read Scripture at arm's length, do we? And so those circumstances, they're important for us to have in mind because those are our contexts for seeing God as our portion. So, things are not how David would choose them to be in his life when he writes this psalm, but he makes 3 choices that I believe each of us can make no matter our circumstances too. And the first is simply to choose God. Choose God. David chooses to look to God, to trust in God, to continue to confidently declare that God is his portion and then to live in light of it. Now, it would be so easy for him, just as it is for us, to choose to live in fear or to choose self-pity, woe is me, or to choose blame. God, why are you being so unfair in allowing this to happen in my life? David is also a man of considerable resource, so likewise it would be easy for him to take things under his own, in his own strength, to make alliances, to get defensive, to go and be violent and aggressive towards this perceived threat, which would not be at all according to God's will if the threat is King Saul. And yet in the face of testing circumstances, we see that David chooses God. He chooses God by running to God, by reaffirming his belief that God is his portion, and by remaining committed to the path of the righteous. So we see that in verse 1, that he runs to God. There he prays and he asks God. He looks to God and he chooses to take refuge in relationship with his God. And I think the challenge for us in seasons where we're finding it hard as well is to ask ourselves the question, is my default response to run to God? When life is getting on top of us, when things threaten our contentment, or when circumstances sap our joy, we have to ask ourselves, have we even prayed about this? Really prayed about it? Asked God, seeked God, sat before God, and listened to him as we poured out our hearts towards him. And so we see David also choose God by reaffirming his belief that God is his portion. This is verse 2. And verse 5, I say to the Lord, you are my Lord. Apart from you, I have no good thing. You, Lord, alone are my portion and my cup. You make my lot secure. David, as he prays, he confirms and he reaffirms that Yahweh is the sovereign over his life. God is in control, not David. David serves God and not the other way around. And David is dependent on God for all good things in his life. And this belief overflows to action and to lifestyle. And so David chooses God by remaining committed to the path of the righteous. Being in a tight spot doesn't change this for David. God is his portion. And so he delights in and honours those whose lives honour God. And he wants no part in the practices of those who seek their satisfaction apart from God. Now, this might sound to us all fairly basic and just good Christianity 101 sort of stuff. But when your back is up against the wall, when you've experienced a prolonged period of discontentment or discouragement, when you've allowed some coveting and jealousy to take root in your life, then it actually needs to be a deliberate and faith-filled choice to run to God, to believe that he is your portion and to remain true to the path of holiness. I mean, how true is it that when we're in a bad place emotionally, it can actually be a little bit too easy for us to slightly turn our back on God and start to look for ways to self-medicate that are unhealthy, even unwholesome, to fill that void in our lives. And so I actually want to give you a minute to test your own heart with what is going on in your life right now and to choose God afresh in the midst of it. You know, God is our portion, so choose him. That's the first invitation and choice I see in Psalm 16. And the second that I see in King David's life is that he chooses thankfulness. Choose thankfulness. This is verse 5 and 6. Lord, you alone are my portion and my cup. You make my lot secure. The boundary lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. Surely I have a delightful inheritance. Here David is saying, even as he struggles with his present circumstances, God, you have been so good to me. God, you are my portion and my cup. That is, God, you are the one who I receive from. You are the one who I drink from. You are the one who truly satisfies me. You make my lot secure. God has been his provider and his protector and his sustainer throughout his life. That's part of his testimony. The boundary lines have fallen in pleasant places. That speaks to God's will. Right, imagine for a moment a plot of land. And there's a lovely little stream running through this bit of land. And your boundary lines, the boundary lines of your property, happen to fall on the other side of that little river, that little creek, which means that it's on your property. It's part of your land. That's the sort of the image and the idea that David is using here to talk about the way that God has actually led him and provided for him. That God's will for his life is like boundary lines falling in a pleasant place. And if you know the story of David, I mean, there's plenty in there that he could complain about or he could question God about, but he chooses thankfulness for the good things that he has received. And this culminates in the expression that surely I have a delightful inheritance. David here is speaking of God and his relationship with God like a prized piece of real estate handed down from generation to generation. You know, God is his true wealth, his security, the place where he is at home. And there's a lovely cultural background and context to this image as well. If you're familiar with your Old Testament, you know that the people of God, the land that they inhabited, was gifted to them, if you like, by God and divided up among them based on his will. And so if you were an Israelite, I mean, you would be hyper aware in that first generation at least, that you receiving this inheritance is an act of grace. You didn't earn it, you didn't deserve it, you can't possibly hope to repay it. Because it was God who set the people free from slavery in Egypt. It's God who sustained them and led them through the wilderness years. It's God who promised and gave them the victory of the promised land. And then God who instructs Joshua to divide the land amongst the tribes, apart from the tribe of Levi, for whom God himself would be their portion, their lot, and their inheritance. What a beautiful picture and way of describing not just land, but actually relationship with God. And isn't that the case with us, brothers and sisters? That we think about where we're born and when we're born, when we think about all the things that have been given to us, from our intellect to our abilities to our relationships, and then we place that in the context of our spiritual life with God, we recognize that all of it is a gift of grace given to us to be received with thankfulness and great gratitude. You know, we need to lose the entitlement and choose thankfulness. And we know that, don't we? We know that thankfulness changes things. We know that it's so hard to be deeply and genuinely thankful to God for who he is, for what he means to us, for what he has given to us, at the same time that we're resenting him for not giving him something that we want and don't yet have. So again, instead of talking about it any longer, let's do it. Now, I'm going to put 2 minutes on the clock now, and I encourage you to spend these 2 minutes praying to God and thanking him for as many things as you can in the next 2 minutes. So let's go, PBC. Let's thank God. Let's choose thankfulness and express that to him in prayer. I love this quote from Diana Bass. She says, "Gratitude is not only an emotion, it's something that we do." And it's like tending a garden. It takes planting and watering and weeding. It takes time and attention. It takes learning. It takes routine, but eventually the ground yields. Shoots come forth and thanksgiving blooms in our lives. Choose thankfulness. And the final choice I see David make in this psalm, which really is a natural choice given what's gone before, is that David chooses trust. He chooses to trust in God. Verse 8, "I keep my eyes on the Lord always. With him at my right hand, I will not be shaken. And so therefore my heart is glad and my tongue rejoices and my body will also rest secure. Because you, God, will not abandon me to the realm of the dead, nor will you let your faithful one see decay." In response to the specific threat on David's life, David chooses to trust God with that specific situation. And his response is to keep his eyes on the Lord always, to not be shaken by the appearance of this new threat, but to know that God is with him. Now, maybe David has had a divine revelation from God assuring him that in this specific situation, God will protect him and prolong his life. But maybe he hasn't. And maybe he's here deliberately choosing to decide to trust God with this specific situation, even though he doesn't yet know the outcome. In either way, choosing trust causes him to experience peace. His heart is glad. His body rests secure. And he is able to continue being a man after God's own heart, his tongue rejoicing and praising God. You know, these verses are such a powerful declaration of confidence in God's hand on a person's life that Peter will actually quote these when he preaches in Acts chapter 2. And just in the same way that God will prolong David's life, Peter will draw the parallel that God also, his hand is on Jesus, not just in prolonging his life, but actually raising him to new life as well, which is pretty cool. I love that bit as well. And so then David finishes this prayer. He finishes this psalm by moving from the specific to the more general. And it's a beautiful verse, isn't it? Confident trust that the Lord is his portion. God, you make known to me the path of life. You fill me with joy in your presence, with eternal pleasures at your right hand. This is the way that the children of God are called to live. Feeling and experiencing, walking in our inheritance, to be content and satisfied and joyful because of our relationship with God and everything that flows into us and through us because of it. And so do you believe this today? Do you believe that the Lord is your portion right now in the midst of whatever it is that's going on in your life? You know, maybe you find yourself feeling flat or deflated, defeated, maybe running on empty. I think that's a fairly common one at the moment. Or maybe you identify with that opening illustration and you just can't shake that discontentment that comes from constant comparison of others. Or maybe you're just finding your current circumstances are just all too much. Well, whatever it is, I want to speak over you afresh today that the Lord is your portion. Apart from him, you have no good thing. So choose him. Choose thankfulness. And choose trust in him this day and in all days. And as you do, I want to bless you in the name of Jesus, that you would know the path of life and that you would be filled with joy in God's presence all the days of your life. Bless you heaps.
Christ is my reward and all of my devotion. Now there's nothing in this world that could ever satisfy. Through every trial, my soul will sing, no turning back. I've been set free. Christ is enough for me. Christ is enough for me. Everything I need is in you. Everything I need. Christ, my all in all, the joy of my salvation. And this hope follow Jesus, no turning back, no turning back. I have decided to follow Jesus, no turning back, no turning back. The cross before me, the world behind me, no turning back, no turning back. The cross before me, the world behind me, no turning back, no turning back. Christ is enough for me. Christ is enough for me. Everything I need is in you. Everything I need. The cross before me, the world behind me. No turning back, no turning back. The cross before me, the world behind me. No turning back, no turning back. I have decided to follow Jesus, no turning back, no turning back. I have decided to follow Jesus, no turning back, no turning back, no turning back, no turning back.
I hope you have been encouraged by our time together today. It is good to remember that the Lord is our portion. May you have the opportunity to share this good news with those around you. Don't forget to get to that survey in your emails. If you do not have that link, then please contact the church office and we will get that to you. For those of you who have been giving to the work of Parramatta Baptist Church, we thank you very much. And if you are looking for ways of supporting PBC, then you can also contact the church office or check in the PBC newsletter. Thank you for being with us, and I'll see you next time.